There's our recording. So to introduce Brad Haseman and Jackie Kauli, who've been working together in Papua New Guinea since 20 years ago, they started, and they were initially addressing a project on sexual health education. Both of them worked in the, excuse me just a sec to let some people in. Both of them worked in the Queensland University of Technology. Brad is professor of drama education, Jackie as an associate professor and researcher. Both taught drama in education, focusing on process drama and aesthetic learning. Most recently, Jackie's work has been with international development and approaches to learning in cross-cultural contexts. In 2014, Brad co-convened the second International Teaching Artists Conference in Brisbane, Australia, ITAC 2. And in 2018, he presented the free course Introduction to Being a Teaching Artist on the Cadenza platform. You can still find it there. Introduction to Being a Teaching Artist on cadenza.com. And both Brad and Jackie are instructors on the new Cadenza course, Your Joyful 21st Century Learning Framework. I'll also put that in the chat box. Currently, Jackie is an honorary associate professor at the University of Auckland, and Brad is professor emeritus with QUT and member of ITAC's leadership committee. And in September this year, Jackie and Brad will be attending the next ITAC 7 in Auckland, New Zealand. And in a moment, I will put that in the chat box. But let me turn it over to our host, to our presenters, and that would first be Brad.
Yes, hello, greetings everyone. Lovely to have you here, and it's a real thrill for Jackie and I to be able to present this. Jackie, do you want to wave and just acknowledge where you are? Yeah, and Jackie, do you want to say hi quickly before we press into the bowels of this?
Yes, sure. Hi, everybody. So I'm Jackie, and Brad is in Brisbane at the moment, but I'm in Perth at the moment. So two different time zones also in Australia, and great to see you all there.
It certainly is. It's a thrill to be finally doing this. And what I'll do is I'm going to set up the kind of emceeing, the chairing of this as a whole. So what we want to do now is just take you through what we'll be doing and what our intentions are for this session. And thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who are happy to have your screens on, that's terrific, because you'll see we're keen to have faces as well as disembodied voices on the image with us. When we drafted the abstract for this session, we hit on a number of key phrases. This is about powerful partnering and what it takes to be a go-to educational partner. And that was an important thing for Jackie and I, because both of us have partnered with many different organizations, not only in education, but health, in a range of industries. But what is it to partner with an education organization? And what's the language and what are the conditions of partnering? So we wanted to connect that, but also build it into what has been a keynote of the Cadenza work, which is the pedagogy of creativity. And we're interesting as a company, Cadenza, because we're online. We're an online company. So we're dealing with the whole notion of building resources that work to the dynamics of a pedagogy of creativity. Now, what the hell does that mean? It's an interesting term. It gets bandied around quite a lot. But what does it actually mean? That's what we hope to address today. And then we want to have as a few of our reference points, Cadenza's new course, which Jackie, myself, and 3 other people contributed to. And it's called Your Joyful 21st Century Learning Framework. And it's enough to say, for us, if you're engaging in creativity, joy, excitement, adventure should be part of the physics of learning. And yet, whether it's live or online, but so often, so much of the spirit of our educational age is getting rid of all of that stuff. And it's a world that's around direct instruction increasingly, standardized testing and so on, that's taking the joy out of learning. If this doesn't apply to you, please leave now. But on the other hand, what we feel is that this is a strong set of global forces that are doing a lot of harm to the way our kids learn. So the three parts of what we're going to do in this hour is as follows. We're going to start with a creative activity, and you're going to meet shortly Francine Gunatuna, who's the coordinator of what's called the BLIPS program, Brain Learning in Pacific Schools. So you'll meet Francine, and you'll have an opportunity to talk with her about what BLIPS actually is. We'll follow that then by reviewing what you found about BLIPS and the pros and cons of partnering on this. And then we're going to take you into the importance of a pedagogy of creativity, which will underpin our work in Cadenza, but also the joyful learning framework. We've identified 6 key characteristics, and what we want to move quickly to is which of those 6 would you like to know more information about? And we can open that, and hopefully, Jackie and I have been living with this for so long, we'll be able to hopefully illustrate with some resources, but also plug some of the questions that you might want to answer. So that's basically what we considered for the hour. And I'm going to, at this point, we could do a poll, which tells us how satisfied you are with that, but we're not. Instead, we're just going to rocket ahead because of everyone's small around the world, and some people are up very early. So I'm very impressed, particularly with that. Okay, so moving to the first activity, I want you to meet shortly. I'll introduce you to Francine Gunatuna. Now, Francine is the coordinator of the BLIPS program, which is Brain Learning in Pacific Schools. You're going to be asked to just imagine that you, the webinar participants, are teaching artists, and you're considering applying for a BLIPS grant. The BLIPS grant it's a program, the UN have funded it, $1 million on the table, because everyone's worried about the poor Pacific, The UN particularly is very worried about it. And what we're doing, what the BLIPS program is seeking to do, is to cover off the skills of the workforce for the young people in the Pacific, and particularly around maths, around numeracy, and even creative thinking. That's recently emerged as a key skill set to be developed in young students. And as you meet Francine and as you ask her questions about what BLIPS program is, and I will introduce Francine, and people can add questions to the chat, or you might just want to put your hand up and come in at an appropriate pause to ask Francine for her question. But I want you to think, would you partner with BLIPS? It's an educational program, of course. It's a $200,000 US grant on the table. There are 5 of them. So will BLIPS be an educational partner for you? So that's where we're going right now. And I'm going to, I will now stop sharing with this. And I'm about to introduce you at this point to Francine. So Francine, are you there? Are you there, Francine? Hello? No, we can't hear you, Francine. You must be on mute. Yes. You're on mute.
Is the connection much better now?
Yes, it's good, Francine. Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
Hello, Brad.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Look, there are a number of people online, and I'm just going to introduce you, Francine. So Francine is running the brain learning in Pacific schools. You've had $1 million funding from the United Nations. And Francine, I'll let you introduce the program, but if people would like to just put their hand up or just pile in for questions in the first few minutes, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah. All right. Should I introduce the program now, Brad?
Well, yeah, I think so. However you'd like to run it,
I'll do
Francine.
that. Yes. So I hear that they're teaching artists on this, and I'd love to engage the teaching artists that are here online now. There's about 26, 29 of them. That's really fantastic. So the BLIPS program that we're running is for educational program within the Pacific School, primary education. There's a $200,000 grant. We would like to engage with you. If you're interested, it would be really great. So one of the things that we already have are scripted programs. We would like to engage you to come and produce these particular scripted programs. And so, as Brad said, we have the maths, some creative activities, we have the sciences and English, quite important. And we'd like to engage you to do that. So already we're working with curriculum development people. They do the English, the maths and the sciences already, and some creative learning. And you'll be part of that to all produce these video scripts. Yeah, and so we're really keen and really interested to do this. We want to focus on this one because we would like our students to learn more about those things in particular. I'll put it there, Brad, if you wanted to add some more, or if anybody online would like to ask me questions, very happy to help out.
Is there anyone online who'd like to come forward with a question?
We have one question. Francine, who created the scripted programs?
Well, we have created the scripted programs. Teachers from within the curriculum in the Pacific have created them. So part of it is the South Pacific community, and there are teachers that are already there that have scripted these programs. But we want the teaching artists to then put some life into it and deliver them to the schools. Now, remember, English, science, create some creativity and some mathematics in there, or key components of that.
Melissa.
Hi, Francine. The program sounds really beneficial for the kids. I'm just wondering, you have repeated a number of times, or you've said a number of times about the science and the maths, the numeracy and the literacy, and we know they're really important skills for the children to have. But we also know there's some really strong research out there that tells us that there is a really strong focus on that, to almost the detriment to other key learning areas in children's curriculum. So I wondered if you could see it as a cross-curriculum or an integrated learning approach rather than just focusing on those aspects. And the other question I had was, how do the arts come into it? Is there I know we're teacher artists, but can the arts come into this somehow?
The arts can come into it, but before I answer that, we're talking about integrated. Do you mean different courses that come into it? Is that what you mean, Melissa?
No, I mean integrated in terms of, rather than it just being a focus on those core areas which education seems to be almost, dare I say, obsessed with. Is there another way that we could actually bring in other learning areas like history or the arts, or are there other areas that you'll be willing to bring into the program rather than just continuing to repeat what we probably know is already being taught a lot in the children's classrooms? Is there any way we can bring other subject areas in to enhance the learning?
Yeah. We'd love to, but later on. First of all, we'd like to emphasize the teaching on the brain skills, the cognitive skills, those high order skills, that's in particular. We'd love the arts, but as I said already, we can bring them later. So let's see how the scripts get developed and then see how the kids are responding to that. And then we can bring in the arts.
Okay.
We have a
Thank you,
Francine.
Melissa.
Andrea.
Thank you. Oh, it's so nice to meet you, Francine. I was wondering, I had two questions. One of them was, I was wondering who these videos that you're asking, it sounds like you would like artists to produce the videos to make them perhaps more interesting, more what you called alive. I'm wondering if there's any two-way aspect to these videos where there's going to be a connection made between the person making the video and the person seeing it, and whether these videos are meant to be viewed by your teachers who are connecting with the students or the students directly themselves.
So you're not going to connect with them. You might connect with them later on, but first of all, you will just be producing these videos on your own and then delivering them to the schools. And then we might see in the duration of the project whether they would like you to connect with them and see the impact of them. But as I said earlier, these curriculum development officers have already developed these scripts, and they are based on the work on the key components of learning, and those are the maths and the science and those cognitive skills, because the islands in the Pacific, we are facing huge climate change. And so if we can future-proof our kids to learn these skills, then they can get jobs outside of the Pacific. And therefore, these knowledge skills are important for them. So we'll keep it that way, but we can test them out with them later on in the duration of the project. We're ending the project in 2026. So in between that, we might have a reflection and an iterative process for that. I hope that answers your question, Andrea.
It does. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And look, I think we're about to lose our connection. You're in Tuvalu at the moment, are you, Francine?
I am, and the underwater cables are disconnecting again. So
yes.
so sorry for that one. Yes.
That's
yes.
right. So we might need to wind it up, and if we could ever get back in touch with you to discuss this, that would be a wonderful to discuss it further. But in the meantime, people will decide whether they'd like to apply for the up to $200,000 for your project. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
I look forward to all of your grants.
Thank you. Will do. Thank you very much, Francine.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. So let me just return to sharing for a moment. My Zoom is gone. I'm just getting back to the to my Zoom. So I'm just wanting to go here. So what we did is that you've had a moment to meet Francine, which was good. So what we'd like to do now is I'm wanting to just do a little bit of quick notes in chat, and also any quick comments from people to address these two questions. How would you describe the BLIPS approach towards education? So what are the words that come to mind? How would you describe it? And what comes to mind about possible partnering with BLIPS? With over 30 people on the call, it's obviously going to be difficult to manage verbally, as it actually would be in a live classroom. But if you could throw down some of your quick responses to the BLIPS approach, that would be terrific. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have some people sharing their thoughts as we do this over the next few minutes. So would somebody like to go forward with that? Somebody like to raise an observation that they think. And if you'd raise your hand, Eric spots you, we can throw to you.
Answers can go in the chat box too. People are starting.
Yep, we're seeing that.
I'll jump in if that's okay.
Yeah.
Please do.
And say that, as I put in the chat box, BLIPS seems to give lip service to creativity. That the phrasing seemed to be very carefully said, that it's going to be maths and numeracy and some creative thinking, some arts, and that some just seemed to be very telling. It was really a red flag. So my sense is I probably would apply, because $200,000 is nothing to sneeze at, and it sounds like there, it might be good to get in on the top, on the first level of a project like this, but it would be an uphill climb in terms of really engaging. Another red flag is doing someone else's script and wondering how much creativity they really want in the delivery of that, or if they'd really be coming back and saying, well, that was lovely, but you've got to do it again because you went off script here and you did that, and you can't have those scarves, you can't jump up and down, or etc.
No, thank you. And Jackie, you've had experiences like this with partners exactly for the Pacific, haven't you?
Well, yes, and I suppose that in the funding part of it is always the important part, where it's because of the funding that people would apply for it, but the value systems around that is like, well, what do you do then when people have given you this pre-scripted work and it's $200,000 US? Then what do you do with that, and how then do you work within that particular framework and to address that? So it is a hard one to do that, and sometimes it's very hard negotiating with organizations when you feel particularly that the arts should be center of it. Yeah. And it would be interesting to hear also some thoughts around how teaching artists negotiate this space as well. Yeah.
And this could easily be a whole other ITAC think tank about the dimensions and qualities of partnering, and partnering to maximize mutual benefit and shared outcomes. We're getting a lot of good comments here that I think are moving us towards this. And I think it's fair to say the last Zoom I was on, we've had this in Queensland for a while now, where teachers are really being given scripts that they're asked to follow in the classroom. One young teacher said to me somewhat embarrassedly, "Oh, I go off script at times. I'll tell a joke or even sing a song," as if she's apologizing for being errant. And I was a teacher in Canada I was talking with recently who said that's what she's been encountering as well. So even though we've framed this as an investigation within the Pacific, we believe it's a dynamic that's alive and well in many global systems. So what we might do, I think it's probably appropriate at this point, and I'm sure just as I've been scanning across the chats, I think that what we're seeing is this was the dynamics of this fictional brain learning in the Pacific. We see these following things: the emphasis on teaching cognitive skills, using cognitive verbs, and especially the more complex, higher order cognitive skills like analysis, evaluation. Indeed, being creative itself has been identified as a higher order cognitive skill, but typically they're in that cluster of analysis and evaluation rather than, say, description or that sort of behavior. You would expect, I think, from Francine, that you'd be encountering behavioral objectives as a means of stating learning outcomes. I think there's no doubt the curriculum's fixed. There'll be time later for that stuff, but it's certainly pretty fixed. It would seem that video lectures followed by diagnostic testing, maybe with some creative diversion, might be allowed, but that's very much the framework. Students need to know what they're learning, why they're learning it, and that they have learned it. It's a variation of the old, you tell them what you're going to teach them, you teach them, and you tell them what, and you assess whether they've learned it. So sadly, it's that approach that is, again, we're feeling quite weighed down by in many education systems. And then, of course, under F, that content typically is a Western empirical knowledge. And while we can understand the dynamics of blips and its future-proofing young people in the Pacific, it's got to raise questions about in the Pacific, and does the content need to be that way? So that was our romp through the the whole business of what we were seeking to do in this particular approach. Now what we do is, and I'm sure the broad sweep of many of these will be familiar to everyone on this call. And so there's specific detail which we can pick up with and we can develop in the chat. But of course, we're not concerned as teaching artists or as arts educators with just teaching cognitive brains. That we don't teach brains alone. The embodiment of the whole person is essential, and that involves not only the body, the affect or the emotions, but the imagination, memory, and the spiritual dimension of human consciousness can be incorporated into that. So many teaching artists have a much broader remit around what they're dealing with. The next thing is that we see behavioral objectives specifying a curriculum in those terms or using cognitive verbs. One extraordinary thing I heard only yesterday was that one education jurisdiction is calling them command verbs. So you command, the teachers will design according to certain principles. The language from the military now, command and control, is creeping in increasingly to the business of education. And for teaching artists seeking to partner, that can be a problem. Because for teaching artists, knowing Elliot Eisner's work, where he privileges problem-solving objectives and expressive outcomes alongside behavioral objectives, is really very important. The notion that the curriculum is fixed, a pedagogy of creativity will be working much more with the learner's experience in mind. It's straight, it's what we've always done, but it's been a development in user experience from gamification of all sorts of learning objects. But how do you choreograph? And choreograph, that's deliberately chosen. How do you orchestrate and diversify the physics of engagement rather than having, as we would have in this case, the video lectures followed by some sort of diagnostic test? And that then leads us to designing in from the beginning and harvesting the benefits of high flexing. Now, high flexing is kind of a bit of the creative term or the trendy term for, are you live, are you online and synchronous, or are you asynchronous, entirely offline with students working independently? So how you actually think, and I mean, I think it's pretty clear that if the notion of education was being invented today, now, I'm not sure we'd be building schools as we are and have for the last 200 years, or since Plato had his academy. I think there'd be a much more engagement around being online and what that means and how do we do that well, and particularly with the arrival of AI is going to create all sorts of, and one of the things, it'll personalize learning, it would seem. Students will be able to have a one-on-one tutor through AI. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that that's unproblematic, but the arcs we're on is really quite an interesting one, the arc that we're on. The next thing that is so important for a pedagogy of creativity is how you make learning personal. How do you not teach a curriculum, but teach a student? All well known, we understand this, but it's an extremely important principle to not just have a nod to, but to actually make as a core design principle. The challenge around, are we doing curricula that's universal? What is its particularity so that it may connect with larger, more universal knowledge systems, but how does it address the particular knowledge and understandings of knowledge that we find certainly across the Pacific, for instance? And the last thing, which isn't necessarily part of the pedagogy of creativity, but it's certainly what we believe you have to hold on to if you're going to work with a pedagogy of creativity, and that's this. There is no single agreed definition of science of teaching. There is no definition of good teaching. It aligns with purposes and outcomes and engagement. So in a way, if you're talking with an educational partner who is talking with you about, well, of course, the science of learning we follow is, my advice would be run, because they don't honestly know what they're talking about. They're the victim of a current fashion. And you know, cognitive load theory has been enormously popular. I think it's bunkum. But nevertheless, you know, this notion that we only have 8 seconds of working memory and then like a goldfish, we lose it. I mean, how on earth did that ever get tested? How on earth was it ever researched? And I do know, because I've read swell of stuff, but also how on earth have they never seen students in flow, in a creative flow of energy? Because there's nothing about 8 seconds that you would see there. So they're the physics of a pedagogy of creativity. And what we want to do is basically suggest to folk that embracing these, but it's the granular detail. How do you do that? That is the important thing. And what we'd like to do is to devote a good hunk of what's left in this to now address some specifics that you're most interested in. So I think at this moment, Eric, what we'll do is we'll try to do a poll. I'm saying trying because we've done polls before, but not sure how this one might go. But we're keen for people to record of these dynamics. And if we actually go, sorry, not, I'll just go to the next one. If we say these are the characteristics of a pedagogy of creativity, these all, not so much this one, because that's a broad statement of approach and implementation. But if you go from these objects here, these A to F, are there things you would like to comment on, and particularly things you want to know more about? I'd really like to have more knowledge about B or D or whatever. So, Eric, can I throw to you for the poll now?
Yes, here we go. This should appear shortly. Are people seeing it? No. Let's see.
Is it in the chat? Is it in the chat or
No, it would appear on screen.
Right. I'm seeing it. It's on my screen.
Great. And so this rating scale is how secure are you in this area? So a low number means you need to know more, would like to know more. And a high number means you feel pretty confident in this area. So mark in your ratings for those 6 characteristics.
And while you're doing that, Jackie, I may well have left out some things So do you want to just sort of embellish or add anything to what we've just been working through?
I would, but there are some questions, Brad, in the chat that perhaps you might want
Right.
to have a look at, and then we
Sure.
could, yes, and then I could talk some more later. But
Why
maybe
don't you pick? Do you want to pick up one or two of those, Jackie, even as we speak now?
Yeah, I think the one, yes, yeah.
There's a lovely comment from Todd about AI.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, for you to have a look at that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can I just say the book that I'm halfway through that is very interesting because it's by an innovative educator, is the book by I can't remember his first name, Salman Khan, who's the chap who set up the Khan Academy. Yeah. He's just published a book. It came out only a month or so ago, and it's about AI and why it's going to be so important. So I'd start with that. And in part, one of the things he's saying is AI will be able to, forgive this phrase, crap detect itself. It will be able to crap detect itself, so that the kind of raw anything goes world of social media will actually be able to be much more disciplined and constrained productively. So if you wanted, for instance, he cites an example, if you want to have a conversation, a debate about is the world flat or not, it will simply say, no, the world's not flat. We're not doing that one. So it kind of closes down those kind of red herrings. Anyway, look, that's just, it's just such a, and I'm like everyone, very skeptical and cautious about, you know, about the dehumanizing force that AI could be in not just education, but in the way we understand our society.
Brett,
Have we? Yep.
We've got 2/3 have responded, and it's been flat. So I think that's about what we're going to get.
Sure.
Let me publish the results here.
Okay, groovy.
Let's see what you got. Can you see those results?
Yeah. So 44%.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of
so embodying the whole person. Okay.
A lot of confidence around that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 is the top, isn't it? 5 and 6 are top. Yeah. Okay. What's the next one, mate?
The next one down, in using problem-solving objectives, we're finding less confidence there. A plurality in the 2 and 3 rating zone.
Okay, that's useful. Thank you. Yeah.
For
maybe that one's one we could do, Jackie.
There's also some uncertainty in designing and harvesting benefits of high flexing. There's some plurality in 1 and 2. I think that may be the lowest scoring of your questions.
Right. Yep. Not surprising in many respects. Making learning personal. Yep. And content, that whole question of particularizing it and how we do that. Jackie is the absolute expert on that one. But there's quite a level of so Eric, would we say that would your reading of this be the objectives question and the high flexing?
Yes.
Okay. How do people feel about that? Well, we know how you feel, that you've just told us. So, so I'm afraid that's what we're going to do. Are folk happy with that? We'll move with that in that direction.
Go for it, Brad.
Okay. All right. Now we can actually what I wanted to do is just quickly before I go to this, is this sharing with everyone, folk? Oh, it's probably not.
Not yet.
I'll just no. I'll just go back to sharing it and sharing that and share.
There you go.
And, yep. I wanted to just very quickly to give you the sweep of this. I just thought it would take literally 2 minutes to just say the Cadenza program, your Joyful 21st Century Learning Framework, that actually it is in 6 sessions. It probably amounts, I mean, most people online don't religiously work through every course. What they tend to do is they use a course like an encyclopedia. They dip in and out of the things they want. And unless you're doing it for a grade, that tends to be the way you use it. So just to say, these were the 6 session headings, and these sessions altogether probably can amount to somewhere between 30 and 40 hours work if you do every exercise. So the first one is the orientation. And in this, in what we've done in Cadenza is we've created a framework for looking at this creativity that is enabled by technology. So that's session 1. Session 2 picks up on goals and outcomes for high student engagement. We're going to pick that up in a minute, picking up with Eisner's work. The instructional activities and high flexing. What is it that's certain? What can you do with some modes of engagement that others are best for? So it's not that live is best for everything. How do we diversify that? What are the principles of TECL? How do the principles inform this framework? How do we make learning personal and significant? And we've nominated 7 of those strategies that we use to do that. And then the last session is really about developing a learning plan using the creativity pedagogy. So to create the plan, and the idea is to repeat it so that you don't just do it once. So you actually end up doing yours once, but doing detailed critiques of 2 others. So the retrieval practice is also a key dynamic here. So just moving on now. So I'll now stop sharing here, and I'm going to just go to share. Just need to go share and here and here. And so is that sharing, everyone?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. So where is my Zoom? Well, that's not helpful. Back to share. Oh, sorry, folks. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble getting back to my share button. Okay.
There you go.
As I'm sharing now.
Yep.
So look, what I'll do simply is, so this is a picking up on the issue of how we express learning outcomes. Now, is this large enough for people to be able to apprehend? And if not, I'm sure we could share this with folk after.
Yeah.
But what Elliot Eisner does, and this is enormously important because his work, this is from 1979, and I think the work has been kind of forgotten about. But most of the trend in education today is we need to have behavioral objectives which are measurable and they know what it is. They're specifying not just that somebody can do it, but how they can do it, the qualities they will display. So their behavioral objective, a measurable standard in the execution of the behavior. It's observable and it can be shown that they demonstrate it, that they demonstrate that capacity. But Eisner also talks about problem-solving objectives, which learners are asked to solve a problem which has a number of possible solutions. And really think of what architects do. Architects design a house, make sure you've got the view of the river from the living room, you know. So you've got a problem solving. And really, I think where this comes in is a little bit of lip service to design-led thinking, where you can design things according to design principles that are learnt and applied with creative flexibility. But Eisner's third category, which is just so important for us, is what he calls expressive outcomes. And these are open-ended activities where literally there is no predetermined objective in mind. In other words, you set something up and you play with it until something arrives that actually is quite a meaningful statement about maybe the very last thing that you thought you were aiming for. So these three together are the dynamics, capture the dynamics of any curriculum or any educational partner wanting breadth and depth. So for learning it, for teaching artists though, often we are locked into the behavioral objectives of today, whereas the problem solving and the expressive outcomes become the key to include, and the ones closest to our heart, and we'll be pushing learning in that direction anyway. So what we did with this is that if we represent those three species of outcomes, and you'll notice two of them are objectives, the behavioral and problem-solving objectives. Eisner doesn't call expressive outcomes objectives at all. They're outcomes which lead to, and if you talk to most artists, that's exactly what they say. Oh, I started off, I wasn't sure what and this is where I ended up. So, and particularly jazz musicians. You know, a jazz musician will start with no predetermined plan, and every note I play now will depend on the note somebody has played before and the next note somebody will play. So it's truly that exploratory, aesthetic, sensuous knowledge as we build. And what we did in this graphic is we attributed some verbs, cognitive, we don't call them cognitive verbs, we call them action verbs. And so if you're wanting to do problem solving, how you might distinguish something, how you might build, how you might compare, contrast, how you might develop, these are the verbs that take you to problem solving objectives. Sorry, the behavioral objectives are the top, the ones at the top here. So I was thinking, why have we got those? That's not correct. So it's the enabling verbs for behavioral are classify, define, demonstrate, measure, identify, recall, summarize. So for problem solving, they're back in that thing of analyze, apply something, build something, manipulate, question. It's there. And then in the expressive outcomes, we've really got things like compose, construct, design, select, supervise. So they're the kind of verbs that will open up the expressive outcome outcomes that as teaching artists, we most value and prize. So that's what I was, what I'm keen to what I wanted to say about that. And I think, sorry, we're probably tight for time, Eric. How are we going now?
Just 4 minutes left.
All right. Do folks want to, my sense is it's worthwhile pressing ahead just for the moment, particularly with yeah. I think it's probably worthwhile just pressing ahead. Look, maybe just the way I've been stumbling around with getting these up, I wonder if it's probably enough if I simply talk. Oh dear. I think what I might do is this: high flexing. So there is a paper put out by Cambridge University which gives you the species of modes of delivery, and in it they make 3 key ones, and they are obviously working live. So what is it to work live and face to face? Now, for most teaching artists and most arts educators, that's what we're familiar with, and we actually believe that's actually the central key to effective teaching. So online is always impoverished in the eyes of such people, and I'm sure there are some on this call who feel that way. And so be it, because we know you've got to be hot and sweaty in the studio. That's when moments of insight happen. However, there is then the synchronous work, which is exactly what we're doing now. The synchronous, we're all in one time and place, and we're sharing our time together, and we're sharing some resources together, and we're sharing opinions together. So there's a lot in this, and this chat is really important for us at Cadenze for the insights you've given us. And we've captured that in ways that if we were in a big circle of 40 people, that we wouldn't have captured. And then the third species is asynchronous. And that is where people go online and do it whenever they want to. And what we've worked on is the question of what, given the intensification of work for teachers, teachers are struggling. I mean, the massive, they reckon we're going to need 20 million teachers to replace the 20 million globally about to leave by 2030. And we'll need 40 million all up. I mean, it's the profession is in a terrible crisis. So one of the things we've got to address is how do we manage the intensification of our workforce? And one way of doing that is to create reusable learning objects. So these are short videos that you make that carry the content of what you want to say. And those then, and you can make them quite simply now, but those videos then can typically have a lifespan of about 5 years before you need to redo them. So rather than endlessly repeating the video on how you manage, what are the elements, what are the 5 causes of tension as an element of drama, it's possible to make a video of that, to have that video reused, and for you to take the time to spend it differently. So I won't elaborate on that, but the importance of reusable learning objects and how you flip between the 3 modes is the key to high flexing. And the key question to guide you, and I'm finishing now, the key question to guide you is, what does each mode do better than the two modes? That's the challenge. It's not just I've got to stick to one. It's how do I get the best use of each of those modes and deploy that in my learning design. We're out of time, but Eric.
Okay, Brad. Thank you, Brad and Jackie, for taking on this enormous body of work and giving us teaser bits that I hope will make us want to jump in and find out more. Just as we close, to let you know, the recording of this session will be made available on ITAC's website under the Think Tank section. We get them up pretty quickly, so you can get this information. I wanted to let you know about the next ITAC Think Tank, which will be entitled Accessibility Across Cultures, a virtual workshop with ITAC's Global Working Group on Accessibility that's been working for about a year. And this is their reporting in from, as you can see, colleagues around the world. If you want to get more directly from Jackie and Brad, your best chance will be at ITAC 7 in Auckland, September 5 to 7. There is the link. It is still possible to register to join us there. They'll be there live. And thank you all for joining today. We'll look forward to seeing you at another Think Tank soon. Use all the resources on ITAC's website. And again, special thanks to Brad and Jackie for taking a world of information and giving us a taster session. Thank you,
Eric.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.